I have, the good news is that I prepare my current events class the night before. Have I prepared my current events class 24 hours before, it would be all different. So I have good fortune that I do it that way. This, as we begin, this is the second week of the Gaza war. And my note says, I have been deeply depressed. That's what it reads right here. That's my notes. I've been having a difficult time. I would like to begin by just checking in with you and with your feelings. Just take a brief moment. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Just a brief moment. Please raise a hand, and then we'll. I want to hear where you are and what. I see Rebecca. Okay.
My nerves are shot. My family is divided on the issue. My sister no longer wants to talk to me, at least for a period of time.
Can you explain why? I don't understand.
Rebecca, she doesn't want to speak with you because?
In my opinion, she has, as Rabbi Leader said, flipped the script.
Okay, I get that. Let's see other people. Steve?
I'm really having a hard time. I don't know how they interview these young people whose children have been taken, their husbands are missing. I have a very hard time with that, and I am so frustrated by the misinformation. And it's not just opinion. There are historical facts, current facts. There's just so much misinformation, and I'm very, very upset with the media because they don't call anybody on it ever. They just act like it's two opinions out there without any notion that there are some true facts that need to be the foundations of people's opinions.
I hear you. Good. Let's have several other people just to trust each other and feel about where we are and anything else that somebody else would like to share about where you are.
I missed it because I'm having a horrible time connecting to you. I finally got you, so I don't know what I missed. I'm sorry.
Okay, Herb and Sylvia.
Well, I'm just plain worried that Israel is going in a bad direction for them for now and the future. That they're about to launch this attack on Gaza, possibly take over physically the property. I don't know. And it seems that for a long term, this is going to be very bad for Israel, as planned by Gaza, by Hamas, and they are just falling into the desires of Hamas for okay.
Thank you, Sylvia. Do you want to jump in, or that's good? Okay, Sukasa.
I'm always waiting for the shoe to drop. I always feel somehow down the line at some point the Jews are going to be blamed. And I worry about the wider Mideast conflict. And I worry about, as somebody said, that Hamas will turn this around and the Jews are going to be blamed.
Well, they already are. They already did that.
Well, there's been a lot of sympathy, but it's funny. I have this visceral reaction that's going to change. I mean, when the hospital got bombed, initially I thought, oh God, it's happened. But apparently they have information that it wasn't Israel.
Yes.
So, but will the Palestinians hear that?
Probably not. No.
No, they don't hear it.
None of the protesters are hearing it either. The protesters are blaming Israel.
Cross conversation. We opened up with individuals expressing their feelings and just letting them do that. Okay, Doris?
I'll tell you, I'm worried to death about the hostages. I fear for them. I hate to say it. Pains me to say it. I don't know that they're alive. How could they be alive after living like that for what, 10 days? Who knows if they're getting any food, any water? There's a couple of young children there, a few babies. What are they? These babies, one of the babies needs medical attention. And these people could care less about anybody. So I'm worried about the people that they have in captivity. And I just,
The hostages. Okay. Yeah.
exactly.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to jump in before
I would like to add one minor comment.
I'm sorry, I didn't see a hand. I'm sorry. Steve?
I just want to add that I'm also very disappointed in all of our prominent universities. I don't know, for example, you saw the Stanford statement.
Okay, let me move forward with that because that's my next thing. Let me do a little formatting and then we'll get to that. That flows, Steve. That flows. We have what is going on right now is campus convulsions. And campus convulsions is just a mild description of what's going on. You know, the Wexner Foundation, headquartered in Columbus, one of the biggest fancy old 20s, 30s adult training for Jewish leadership. Wexner is a big thing. They have a cooperative, collaborative program at Harvard, bringing in large sums of money to Harvard and bringing Harvard into direct connection with next-gen Jewish leaders. Wexner just canceled, pulled out of Harvard totally, wants nothing to do with Harvard. That's just interesting. Next, I can tell you from my family, but without getting anecdotal, this business of what's going on campuses is actually having an impact on where juniors and seniors in high school are beginning to apply or are applying for college. I find that astonishing. That is to say, parents, and there are parents groups meeting in private schools so that it's a universal discussion, are trying to find which campuses will be safe for their kids. That's, I don't have a word for it. Let me live with astonishing, but it doesn't carry it. So they're looking at Harvard and looking at UPenn and they're looking at Stanford and they're looking at, and you know what? There are parents saying, we don't think our kids will be safe on those campuses. We will have to look elsewhere. That's an actual generational impact.
I agree.
Going on. Some parents have let it be known that they will not allow their children to apply to universities in Republican-dominated states, period. That's out there. It's only blue or only red. And some of us who have lived around the country say that that's relatively useless, but people are very, very angry. Next, because of what's going on, another generation of Jewish kids is losing their exposure to an Israel experience while they are moderately young. So, for example, the Browerman regular trip to Israel, April coming, is canceled. Is canceled. So that, you know, those aren't things, okay, if you don't pick up today, you'll pick up tomorrow. But you know kids' schedules, you know how things go. It's not going to happen that way. These kids are being robbed of their Israel experience.
Right.
But there's more. The Hebrew Union College has shut down its in-person first-year rabbinic school program in Jerusalem. They've shut it. They've shut it in coordination with other universities in Israel, which have shut. HUC is going to try to run this virtually, but you and I, you collectively and I, a broken singular, all know that it's not the same. That when you pull the kids out of Israel and they're studying Israel from Lexington, Massachusetts, it's not the same as experiencing Israel in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and so forth. Next, the Board of Governors of the Jewish Agency has canceled its November? Board of Governors.
September.
Okay, so it's the end of October. That meeting in Jerusalem is canceled. That means the leadership of the Jewish Agency, which is the most powerful international Jewish gathering, has now told its members, you can't come to Israel now. It's not safe. That's happening. And my last comment, and then Steve, I'll open to you and others. My last comment is, with all of the things that are currently happening, there is no question that in the United States, in Europe, in South America, the boundaries between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism are severely blurred. The rise of anti-Semitism from out of the rocks, in conjunction with dumping on Israel, has created a very dangerous environment for Jewish people in the United States, in Europe, in South America. I will stop this. There's only 700 more things to do. Steve.
Well, I'll start with Stanford, one of my alma maters. I was very disappointed in their statement, which basically said we favor pro-speech, we sympathize with everybody, and we really shouldn't be speaking out. I think it's the obligation of any major university, respected institution to speak out, not just to say we oppose terrorism, but to actually point at who the bad guys are, who the instigators are. It's no different than the Holocaust. And if you have that kind of prominence in society, you have an obligation, and that kind of a response is 100% unacceptable. Harvard's response is unacceptable. My other alma mater, Penn, Liz McGill, finally got the point and kind of moved away from where she was with that horrible conference that she didn't pull the university's name from, when Huntsman and a couple other, $100 million plus donors said, we're not giving you any money if you don't clean up your act.
Yeah, by the way, Huntsman is Mormon.
I know.
I mean that in the most complimentary sense. Huntsman is not doing it out of a Jewish thing. He's doing it out of a moral, religious thing.
There are a couple of the other donors are Jewish who give tens of millions.
Yes.
And
let's just move forward. Are there other responses to what's going on now on the campuses in the United States, Howard? Howard, please get close to your microphone.
I just would mention that Brandeis.
I can't hear you, Howard.
Oh dear. It's about as close. Hello? Can you hear me?
Try it. Go ahead.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Brandeis, I'm an alumnus of Brandeis University. I got a letter from the president of Brandeis, which I thought, this was a couple of weeks ago, which I thought was really pretty wishy-washy. And then I found out that that's the second letter. The first one, if it wasn't even a letter or he wasn't going to respond or something. So it's a pretty weak response. whatever.
Thank you. I wasn't aware of Brandeis, and boy, that's disappointing. Okay, all right. Is there anyone else who wants to respond to the university or high school? What's going on? I'm going to tell you, it's obvious we're going to go forward with our conversation, that as the war really intensifies, the anti-Zionism and the anti-Semitism is going to exponentially increase. We are in for hell. And we'll talk about that. Israelis have reacted as they always seem to do when there's existential threat. Learn this: close to 200,000 Israelis living in the United States or visiting in the United States have flown home to join the army.
Yep.
I'm going to let that be a standalone. That is incredible. Since the massacre, 200,000, most for the purpose of joining their reserve units. The demand for flights has been so great, and Delta and American and all those places canceled out. The demand has been so high that El Al has allowed returning Israelis who couldn't book seats on the flights to sit on the floor of the airplane for this States to Israel flight. Okay, one might assume that's not the safest. Howard is very upset. One might assume that is not the safest way to fly, and I think you'd be right, but El Al is bringing back as many Jews, Israelis, as possible. I'm going to stop on that before I get to the Biden visit. Any comments? That Sukasa?
Are any private people that own airplanes, are they helping to fill that void? Do you know?
There are funny things about airplanes. You can't fly people without you got to have the Transportation Association and all. You got to be certified. Fine. But we know, those of us who attended the Wilshire Boulevard event, that one member of the congregation has leased a 747, which is a fairly large airplane, and is filling it with goods, medical supplies, clothing, bedding, whatever. And
God bless him.
please don't say he's going to get a charitable deduction. I am just impressed with leasing a 747. Then, in addition to that, just from Wilshire, but it's not just at Wilshire, people are buying ambulances for Magen David Adom like mad. And I can offer you a special with a Stanley Davids discount. You can get an ambulance for only $110,000 to $115,000. So if you want to do that, they'll deal with you. And in the meanwhile, Bloomberg set up a matching program so that if we buy 6, Bloomberg will buy another 6.
Wow.
I mean, it's almost enough to make you like the guy. I shouldn't even say that. He's always been good on Israel, and my God, is he being good on this. So buy one, get one free ambulances, 110, 112,000, whatever it is, and do it. I know that in my family, there has been a major gift to buying an ambulance. And I also know that Wilshire is publishing the names of anyone who makes a donation from $1 or more, which is the moral thing to do. So if you can afford to give $1, they're printing you on the list, and they don't say noch schleppers and then, you know, the little group at the end. They're listing everyone the same. And that's great. So that's beautiful stuff. Though I still have the image of young Israelis sitting on the floor of an airplane to fly to Israel. I'm not quite comfortable with that act. Okay, so we're going to move on now to Biden in Israel and the hospital. Okay, is that are you okay with that? No one else has something else to add? Fine.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Donna, do you have something to add?
I will give $100 when I get my check.
That is terrific. And then you just have to contact the congregation. They'll tell you how to do it. And that's
Thank you, Rabbi.
extraordinarily generous. And I'm not fundraising. When I'm fundraising, you'll know. But no, this is just good stuff. Now, we had the shock of Bibi when speaking with Joe Biden, saying, if you're in the neighborhood, why don't you come by? It was an invitation that was not prepared for, and Biden accepted. Based upon what Blinken, fabulous guy, Secretary of State, was able to do, an itinerary to make the presidential visit worthwhile was created. If I remember correctly, it's to meet with the head of the Palestine Authority. It was to meet with the King of Jordan. It was to meet with Sisi, the president of Egypt. I think that was the deal. Plus, there would be all kinds of security stuff. What do we learn from the hospital event? And the reason I mention it, Jordan was in the list. Jordan wasn't canceled. Jordan did cancel, which is a different way of reading it. Now, hi, Lauren. Here is what I'm going to ask our loyal current events gathering to remember. Don't jump too quickly to any report you get from any source over the next few weeks, whatever the war will be. Don't jump. Oh, I just heard, newsflash, CNN, Fox, Al Jazeera, whatever you're listening to, don't jump at all. You've got to give. It's funny, there's a Hebrew expression which will not surprise anybody. What is the Hebrew expression for you've got to let the thing mature before you respond? They use levashel. You gotta let it cook.
Marinate.
I just think that's a very Jewish way of looking at it. You've got to let the situation cook.
Marinate.
Marinate, isn't it? Yeah, marinate.
Please
Yeah.
be quiet. You've got to let the situation cook. Don't respond quickly. Give time for analysis, for checking sources, and looking at implications. That's number one. Number two, go slow on any public announcement from you, whether it's on social media, whether it's to a group of people, whatever. Hold on public statements and planned actions until you have a real sense that you know what's happening. After the United States Security Agency stated that the missile that hit the hospital was an errant missile launched by Islamic Jihad. It went astray. It malfunctioned. It
Right.
hit the hospital.
That's right.
After that report was given and the President of the United States approved, and the Israeli government said, we've been saying that for a long time. Hamas indicated it's absolutely clear that Israel bombed the hospital intentionally. Okay? And I just gave that in chronological order. So we have to be thoughtful, analytical, and don't jump, because in the fog of war, all sides are ready to give you their facts. And I want to be clear. There have been times when Israelis gave their facts that have not been factual. I just want to be clear about that. And what I'm saying is, always be careful. Don't respond to every event. Don't get on to your social media and give your statements until you're really sure. Before I move on to my next topic, Steve.
I just want to point out that Biden was very careful. He didn't take that position until the Pentagon independently confirmed what Israel had, and Israel itself had visual proof.
Okay, Steve, I'm with you, and I'm willing to say that at this stage in the operation, I am willing to say Islamic Jihad, missile gone astray, bombed the hospital. It's a horrible, horrible loss of 200-300 lives, but Israel did not do it. I can
Did
say
not.
that now with clarity.
Right.
It took
Right on, Rabbi.
please hold. It took this level of validation before, I would say. And we just should hold in that position. Any other comments? Okay, Michael, it's good to see you. You and I communicate, but not as much as I want. Go ahead. Islamic Jihad. Yes, go ahead, please, Michael.
Oh, no, I wasn't looking for.
No, but where are you sitting with this, Michael? I just like to hear you.
Oh, I see. Generally very sad and upset by everything, by the huge loss of life, by, the prospect of more, and also by the level of dehumanization that's being brought on as a result, with people just deciding that every single Israeli is bad or every single Palestinian is bad. And it's very disheartening.
Michael, I know you, and that's a pleasure, but I know you, and we are both saying we must conscientiously separate between Palestinians and Hamas. There's something logical thing. All Hamasniks are Palestinian, but by far not all Palestinians are Hamasniks. And the same goes to Hezbollah, and we'll be talking about Hezbollah in a moment. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Howard.
I heard a interview with Hanan Ashrawi, very new. I'm sure it's easy to find on the internet. when I watched that, I became very aware that there is no space between her and any Hamas spokesperson I've heard. She's on the same page, and I recommend it's anyone.
I don't want to give a false impression because you're going to put it in the Wilshire Boulevard Temple. I've known Hanan Ashrawi for many years. Stop. That means I've read and listened to her commentaries, okay? And she is extremely bright and totally without nuance when it comes to Israel the evil, Israel the devil, Israel is wrong. The only problem with Hanan Ashrawi, and I feel really bad about it, is that she's very articulate, very careful in what she says, and so lots of people believe her. I don't. But she is consistent, and so when you see Hanan Ashrawi being interviewed, filters go up, okay? That's all. Howard, is that okay? I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
I thought that this particular interview, I mean, I've heard her over the years, and from way back.
Yes, we go back way back.
Not that I know her personally, but I've heard her on being interviewed over the years, and I've always thought that she's a nasty person, but and a liar. But when this particular one made it very clear, more clear, based on what I've heard her say publicly. She's not a partner for peace, for sure.
Oh, no. As a matter of fact, and we're going to move on from Hanan Ashrawi, but to say that she was a major spokesperson during Arafat's time. Okay? She's been with there all along. Okay. I'm just dealing with, again, a corrupt computer, but you'll have to live with me on this. Okay, now the next thing. What has been lost? We have to think about that. I think that in some ways, Joe Biden was on his way to a Nobel Peace Prize. If he could have, actually this broke before he left the United States, but coming together to meet with heads of Jordan, Palestinian Authority, Egypt, to be in that situation, and then at the same time be working on, I don't know if the word's rapprochement, but working with Saudi Arabia to try to bring the Saudis into some sort of arrangement with Israel, which would be like the Abraham Accords. If he could have pulled that off, I hear clicking in computer, and it's hard. I'm sorry. If he could have,
Somebody's typing.
he would have achieved world celebration. Not only that, he would have received a big bump in his electoral campaign. So one thing has been lost, that. Michael?
Yeah, I would say two things from my understanding. One, this is anecdotal, but from listening to an episode of The Daily, I gathered that a lot of the people who lived near the border with Gaza lived there specifically because they were interested in peace, they were interested in outreach, they had contacts with people across the border, they considered them friends, and that feeling that there was a possibility of that kind of outreach is one thing that's vanished. And that, I guess, goes to my earlier point too.
Okay, so that becomes a loss, and let me amplify or celebrate what you're saying. Some of the kibbutzim had their children in the school learning Arabic as well as Hebrew.
they were doing that as a neighbor thing, right? They live half a mile away. We should be able to speak. And secondly, there were, I think, 20,000, whatever, I think that's the number, Gazans entering Israel under permission to work. And I'm going to have to be honest here. It's a little difficult. Our building in Jerusalem was obviously inside the Green Line. I wouldn't have had it any other way, but not far from the Green Line. We could see the Green Line from our apartment building. Our apartment building was built at a time when then, as used to be now, Palestinian laborers were brought into Israel, and they were doing construction work, and they were getting paid like everybody else. And there was a need for workers, and they did. Michael, we also discovered that in the process of construction, some of the gas lines were tampered with by some on the construction. And so I just want to say it's not an unmitigated blessing. We had a major fire thing because one of the gas pipes had been cut thinly so that it wouldn't pop immediately, but maybe after 6 months. And so we dealt with that. But going back to, there were still lots of Palestinians getting the money so they can live and buy food and medication and whatever coming into Israel. And the kibbutzim, as you point out, on the Gaza border were not there as a fortress. They were there to help defend Israel, but also to establish human relationships with the Gazans. Thank you for that. Okay, Donna, you have something new to add.
I just want to thank you for your commending President Biden. I think he does deserve a Nobel Peace Prize, and God bless him.
Okay, now we're going to move forward unless there's somebody else waiting about what was lost. Why did Egypt and why did Jordan have to cancel? The notion, I'm still an American imperialist, okay? A little bit anyway. The notion of a foreign leader canceling an already established meeting with the US president. Folks, check your history books. It doesn't happen much. You don't diss the president of the United States. Having said that, Jordan and Egypt canceled. Also the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, but we'll talk about Egypt and Jordan first. I need your help. What drove the Egyptians, full stop? What drove the Jordanians, full stop, to cancel the meetings after the terrible disaster at the hospital? What motivated the Egyptians? What motivated the Jordanians? Help me with it. What do you know? What do you think?
Yeah, Rabbi?
Okay. Okay. Rebecca?
Well, first of all, my initial thought was safety. Why would they want to be traveling to such a danger zone? And then my second thought is if they managed to have enough security, it could have resulted in riots in their own country.
You're moving in the right direction. Do we have others who would like to offer analysis? Why Jordan? Separate reason. Why Egypt? because it's important for us to understand that. It doesn't just happen in thin air. The Muslim Brotherhood was founded where? In Egypt. What became ultimately Hamas and Hezbollah and radical Islam was born in Egypt. Hold on to that fact, okay? In other words, the situation was such that it happened. Secondly, Egypt doesn't want people, refugees from Gaza, coming into their territory. You know that the piece of Egypt that is adjacent to the Gaza Strip is what? What's that piece of land in Egypt adjacent to the Gaza Strip?
Sinai.
Desert.
Sinai Desert, Sinai Peninsula. The Sinai Desert has been Egypt's Wild West, where radical groups have established themselves and have struck out from there against, if you will, mainstream Egypt. Sisi is an autocrat, we can deal with that, but he acknowledges that he has major opposition in Egypt, which he has been nice enough to try to crush by any means available. When it would be known that after the hospital was bombed, Egypt's president met with President Biden, he would have been in danger for his life.
Okay.
Okay, now I want to shift before I get to Sukasa. I want to shift to Jordan. What's the geopolitical reality that can help us understand why Jordan canceled on President Biden? Okay, I see Sylvia, yes?
I think, I don't know, 85% or thereabouts of Jordan's population is Palestinian.
All from Brick.
And if he met with President Biden, he'd probably have an uprising in his own country because he would be seen to be sympathetic to the Israelis.
Very good, very important. Anyone want to fill in more detail? But that's yes, Sylvia, that's true. How did Jordan become the Hashemite kingdom? It's called the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan. A family from Saudi Arabia was imported after World War I to take control of what would become the kingdom of Jordan. In other words, the monarchy, let's give them 100 years, maybe less. Before that, the current monarchical family were Saudis. The Palestinians control the parliament in Jordan. The good news for the king of Jordan is that the parliament is impotent. Okay? But if the king of Jordan, after the hospital incident, would meet with Biden, he would have serious difficulty. The third cancellation came from Abbas. And would anyone, before I give my sardonic evaluation of Abbas, want to comment on why he canceled. Okay, he has the spine of a jellyfish. I'm sorry. No,
We agree, Rabbi.
He's
Huh?
impotent.
Howard, you had your hand up?
I was just going to say because he wants to die in bed and not have his.
Yeah. Unlike leadership in the United States, gerontocracy in the Palestinian Authority seems to be a good thing. And he is very gerontocrated. He is very much not a person in control. Now, having said those three things, so we can understand that these people didn't just cancel out of pique, they canceled out of geopolitical concern. Why is Abbas such a major threat to the future of peace with Gaza? Why is he such a threat?
Threat to whom?
This is really important to hold on to. The major question that Israelis, Americans, and there are a few other people of goodwill are asking is, after Israel defeats Hamas, maybe even after Israel crushes Hamas, who's going to be in charge of Gaza? President Biden, I'll be there in a second, Rebecca. President Biden made it really clear, and he is correct. It can't be Israel. Israel must not replace Hamas as the ruling authority in the Gaza Strip. Rebecca.
Well, as far as I understand, the Palestinian Authority does have some leadership in Gaza right now because they're able to issue passports to Gazans, right?
It's a mixed legal structure, but the Palestine Authority and Hamas have been at each other's throats from forever. The Hamas would be very happy, and they have tried and to some extent succeeded in infiltrating the West Bank and setting up competitive power centers to the Palestine Authority. Hamas has been very effective that way. The Palestine Authority has been utterly unwilling to set up a succession structure. Who will be next after Abbas? No one believes that Abbas can take control of Gaza as a person, as a very old and useless person. So his weakness is a threat to what Israel has to do to set up a different power center in Gaza. And I'm going to pause here. This is big stuff for your comments. What should Israel do, assuming Israel can be moderately victorious? What can Israel do? Donna.
Yeah, Rabbi. I think that they should, most used to say years ago, annex the West Bank.
I didn't hear you. Try it again.
Annex the West Bank.
I'm saying what can happen to government in Gaza.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood. Okay, I'm
Okay,
not sure, Robert.
Rebecca?
I agree with what Sue Casa just put in the chat, that why can't the
I
UN,
don't know what Sukasa put in the chat. You're sneaking behind my back. Wait a second. Oh, I see Lauren is there.
I just said, can the UN step in?
A protectorate.
and has the UN been able to do that in the past in any other countries with any kind of success?
Yeah, Howard Weisberg, first of all, I'm leaving the chat, but I agree with you. Israel picked up the chat of Islamic Jihad that it's ours. Yes. I mean, there is, as far as we're able to say, no question.
The chat was actually from Hamas. Ours means us, not the Jews.
I don't believe, and I will not believe, that either Hamas or Islamic Jihad or any of those good folks intentionally sent a missile into the hospital. I won't believe that.
No, they didn't say that. They were. I just want to say that the recording, if I understood it correctly, based on what they said when they were talking, was two Hamas operatives talking to each other and saying it's ours, meaning not the Jews.
Yes.
And then saying it's the Islamic Jihad that did it, implying that it's not these people talking were not from Islamic Jihad.
Right. And by the way, the meanwhile, and that's not Hamas. I mean, it's a little complicated.
They were, but the people talking were Hamas. They weren't even familiar with the parking lot and the church and everything.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Apparently the hospital is in the middle of Gaza City. It's a big.
It's next to a hospital. It's next to the cemetery where they were launching rockets.
Okay, Steve?
I just want to respond to what's in the chat and say, given the separate refugee organization and how the UN treats Israel, the UN needs to be as far away from the situation as possible, in my opinion.
And Steve, when this happens, I begin to get a little itchy. I totally agree with you. Nothing should be done to invite the United Nations into this mess. Nothing. Because whatever happens will be bad for Israel. So all right, let me say it straight to your face. Arba einayim. I agree with you, Steve. We can't do it. Okay, at least you could applaud, little gratitude there. Okay, so we have, the problem is being called the day after problem. What happens the day after Israel secures whatever might be termed a victory? Who will run Gaza? Most psychiatrists would say, don't ask Abbas. He'll probably order a cheeseburger. I mean, it just, no, don't ask Abbas. But then who? And it can't be Israel. And it can't be the UN. And you know what? That means Israel is going to be stuck. What is the statement? If you break it, you own it. Israel is going to be left holding Gaza in the worst possible situation. That's a nightmare. Now, we have 4 minutes left, and I want to go on to, let's see how I did with this. Oh, that's terrific. I am on page 20 of my notes, and I only have to get 23 in the next 4 minutes. Okay, that's not going to happen. Biden has lost a lot. The possibility of making partners out of Egypt, Jordan, Palestine Authority has been set back. What's even more painful is that everything we know says that the conversation with Saudi Arabia and Israel had been moving, and people were actually beginning to talk about, we will have an announcement soon. A missile falls on the hospital, and that's over. Not only that, in my little mind, an agreement between Israel and Saudi Arabia could have been a sufficient carrot to pull Israel back from an all-out invasion. It might have been if they would say to Israel, hey, you guys, do something, but don't do the all-out invasion. Saudi Arabia is ready to sit with you. Wow. Wow. That's dead now. Now, there is something else. Could Israel launch a revised Gaza campaign? Here is what is being talked about among those people who talk about things. Israel has already, in case you've noticed, started a campaign to decapitate Hamas leadership. Have you been following this? The head of this and the head of this have suddenly gone on permanent vacations. And this process could continue. Decapitate the Hamas leadership. I don't mean decapitated. Remove them from life. Remove them from life. I don't want to use thank you. That would come back to haunt me. Remove the Hamas leaders from life. Blow up and flood the tunnels. No door-to-door fighting. This is, we will have to watch, wait, and see. I think the process of killing Hamas leaders is ongoing. That's happening as we speak. The blowing up and the flooding of tunnels, why is that a problem? Because that's where the kidnapped people are being held.
Right. If they're still alive.
Giving you that if they are still alive. Then you know that there are 2 U.S. carrier fleets. Oh, Michael's leaving. Thank you. And thank you, Michael. And come back. We need you. You're great. Oh, it's 1 o'clock. I'm going to have to leave. Yes. The 2 carrier outfits are there to guard the northern border against an Hezbollah assault. Biden said that he is going to prepare to have 2,000 boots on the ground.
Oh, really?
I, not being good on all kinds of stuff, asked, is that 2,000 soldiers or 1,000 soldiers and 2,000 boots? I got caught in that. So what we have to look, and with this we'll close, signs from the U.S. military. If Hezbollah seeks to get involved, what will the U.S. do? This is different than Hamas and Gaza. Folks, I apologize for the inadequacy of the internet stuff I'm working with. Thank you for your wisdom and your interest. We'll be back in 2 weeks. And oh boy, no prediction as to what we're going to be talking about. Love
Thank you,
all.
Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi. I have to go. I'm sorry.
See you soon. This is great.
Thank you.
We
This
love
is
you.
amazing.
Mwah. Love you, everybody.
Sorry, I have to go.
We feel as though fighting Israelis are